What if the reason you notice everything isn't because you're naturally observant, but because at some point in your life, not noticing became dangerous? You walk into a room and immediately sense that something is wrong. You notice the person whose smile doesn't reach their eyes. You hear the tiny change in someone's voice. You can tell when a conversation is about to become uncomfortable before anyone else seems to notice. People might call you emotionally intelligent. They might say you're unusually mature, perceptive, or good at understanding people. But psychology points toward a more complicated possibility. Sometimes what looks like extraordinary awareness can develop from a mind that spent years trying to predict what would happen next. When your environment feels unpredictable, your brain becomes extremely interested in patterns. Who's angry? Who's withdrawing? Why did their tone change? What does that silence mean? What happens after this expression? Eventually, you stop simply experiencing the moment. You start scanning it. And here's the paradox. The same awareness that makes you incredibly good at reading people can also make it difficult for you to stop reading them. Because if your mind learned that danger could arrive without warning, uncertainty doesn't feel neutral. It feels like something you need to solve. And that may explain why some of the smartest looking things you do are actually attempts to feel safe. But before we go further, there's an important distinction. Trauma doesn't magically give someone a higher IQ. And being hyper-aware doesn't automatically mean you're emotionally intelligent. Hypervigilance and emotional intelligence are not the same thing. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand emotions and respond to them effectively. Hypervigilance is different. It's your nervous system constantly searching for signs that something might go wrong. From the outside, they can look almost identical. You seem calm. You understand people. You rarely get surprised. You think 10 steps ahead. But internally, something very different may be happening. Your mind is running simulations. What did they mean by that? Why did their tone change? Did I say something wrong? What if this happens next? And suddenly, a simple conversation becomes an investigation. You don't just remember what happened. You replay it. You don't just make decisions. You analyze every possible consequence. You don't simply meet someone. You study their behavior. And here's where it gets strange. When uncertainty was once associated with pain, your brain may begin treating certainty as protection. So you keep analyzing, predicting, and preparing, even when there is no immediate threat. And that's when several unusual patterns can begin to appear. You may notice tiny behavioral changes that other people completely miss. A pause, a facial expression, a different tone, a sudden silence. You may notice them before you even consciously understand why. This doesn't mean you can read minds. It means your attention may have become unusually sensitive to small social cues. You're constantly asking, sometimes without realizing it, what changed? And when you've spent years looking for changes, you can become very good at finding them. But there is a downside. When you're constantly scanning people, you don't always know when to stop. A neutral expression can feel meaningful. A delayed reply can feel suspicious. A small change in someone's voice can become something your brain needs to explain. Your awareness becomes a strength, but also a source of exhaustion. Have you ever had a conversation 3 days ago suddenly return to your mind at midnight? And then your brain starts editing the entire scene like a film. What should I have said? What did they really mean? Could I have handled it differently? You may think this means you're thoughtful or analytical. Sometimes it is. But sometimes, overthinking is simply your brain trying to eliminate uncertainty. If you can analyze every possibility, maybe you can prevent the next bad outcome. But there's a problem. You can't think your way into complete certainty. So the analysis continues and continues until thinking stops being problem-solving and becomes another form of fear. You may deeply want connection while simultaneously feeling uncomfortable when someone gets too close. You want to be understood, but being truly seen can feel strangely threatening. You may be incredibly good at supporting other people's emotions while finding it difficult to ask for support yourself. You understand everyone else. But when someone asks, "How are you really doing?" you suddenly don't know what to say. Why? Because understanding other people can feel safer than allowing someone to understand you. You can observe someone without being vulnerable. You can predict someone without depending on them. And sometimes, that distance feels safer than intimacy. This may be the strangest pattern of all. Imagine you've spent years adapting to emotional chaos. Eventually, calm arrives. Nothing is wrong. Nobody is angry. There is no crisis to solve. You should feel relieved. But instead, you feel restless. You start looking for the problem. You question the relationship. You create distance. You delay an opportunity. You convince yourself that something is going to go wrong. This doesn't necessarily mean you want to destroy your own happiness. It may mean your brain has simply become more familiar with survival than safety. Chaos requires action. Peace requires trust. And trust can be difficult when your earlier experiences taught you that stability could disappear without warning. So when life finally becomes quiet, your mind may ask, "What am I missing?" But here's the most important part. These patterns are not proof that you're permanently damaged. And they are not a badge of intelligence. They're adaptations. A mind can become incredibly sophisticated while trying to protect itself. But eventually, survival strategies can outlive the environment that created them. The goal isn't to lose your awareness. It's to stop being controlled by it. You don't have to stop noticing everything. You have to learn that not everything you notice requires a response. You don't have to stop thinking deeply. You have to learn when thinking has become another form of fear. And you don't have to become a completely different person. Sometimes healing means taking the abilities that once helped you survive, your awareness, your intuition, your sensitivity, and finally using them in a life where you don't have to be constantly on guard. So maybe the real question isn't, am I unusually intelligent because of what happened to me? Maybe it's something much more meaningful. How much of the person I became was built for survival? And how much of that person do I still need today? Which of these patterns felt most familiar to you? Do you overanalyze people? Do you struggle to trust calm situations? Do you understand everyone else's emotions while hiding your own? Or do you prepare for problems that haven't even happened yet? Tell me which one describes you most in the comments, and tell me why. And if you enjoy psychology, human behavior, and ideas that make you understand yourself a little differently, subscribe to Wealth Theory for more videos like this. Because sometimes the most powerful form of intelligence isn't knowing how to predict what will happen next. It's finally realizing that you don't have to predict everything anymore.